Updated March 23, 2019, 11 hours 55 minutes and 2 seconds. Turkey's president has played footage of the Christchurch mosque shootings just hours after meeting New Zealand's foreign minister and assuring him of the safety of Australians and New Zealanders visiting Gallipoli. Key points. Winston Peters took a conciliatory tone during his speech in Turkey. He said he did not see any sound peaceful purposes for raising the issue. New Zealand's Deputy Prime Minister also said the gunman faces life prison in isolation. Recep Tayyip Erdogan received strong international criticism for playing the footage at campaign rallies and for saying Australians and New Zealanders would be sent home in coffins if they came to Turkey with ill intent towards Islam. Despite New Zealand trying to stop the video from being shown around the world, the country's foreign minister Winston Peters did not raise the issue in an emergency bilateral meeting with Mr. Erdogan, saying he believed the Turkish president would not do it again. "I did not see any sound, long-term peaceful purposes in raising it," Mr. Peters said immediately following the meeting, at which it had been widely expected that he would raise the issue. "I did not ask that question because I felt I didn't have to ask it because they are not doing that anymore." However, within hours, Mr. Erdogan played the footage again at a rally in the city of Konya. A response was sought from Mr. Peters, who said he did not wish to comment further. Australians and New Zealanders still welcome at Gallipoli. Peters traveled to Turkey to confront Mr. Erdogan after the Turkish leader screened video clips of the attack, in which 50 people were killed, at election campaign rallies. Mr. Erdogan also drew a rebuke from Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison for comments appearing to suggest that Australians and New Zealanders with anti-Muslim sentiments would be sent back in coffins like their ancestors who fought against Turks in the World War I Battle of Gallipoli. But Mr. Peters took a conciliatory tone during a speech at an emergency session of the 57-member Organization of Islamic Cooperation's (OIC) Executive Committee called by Turkey to combat prejudice against Muslims. He welcomed comments by Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu, who said at a news conference at the end of the OIC meeting that Australians and New Zealanders visiting Turkey would be greeted at Gallipoli remembrance ceremonies next month with the same welcoming hospitality as they always were. Video. Scott Morrison denounces the Turkish leader's comments. ABC News. Mr. Peters said, "We are returning home to New Zealand with a grateful assurance that our people will come here to commemorate Anzac and will be as welcome as they always were." Mr. Peters told representatives of Muslim nations that the mosque gunman faced life in prison in isolation. "No punishment can match the depravity of his crime, but the families of the fallen will have justice," he said. Australian Brenton Tarrant has been arrested and charged with murder. The 28-year-old live-streamed the attack and released a manifesto describing his white supremacist views and how he planned the shootings. The OIC, in a declaration, urged all countries to refrain from statements and policies that associated Islam with terror and extremism. It also demanded that March 15, the day of the Christchurch attack, be marked as the International Day of Solidarity Against Islamophobia. Addressing the OIC meeting, Mr. Erdogan praised New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, saying her reaction, the empathy displayed and her solidarity with Muslims, should serve as an example to all leaders. Mr. Erdogan slammed populist politicians who he said encouraged attacks on Muslims and refugees, politicians who paved themselves the road to power by alienating Muslims and creating enemies out of refugees, must pull themselves together. He also called for neo-Nazi groups to be considered terrorists. "If we don't show our reaction in a strong manner, the neo-Nazi virus will engulf the body even more. If we don't raise our voices, Western governments will not disrupt their comfort." ABC, AP Topics, World Politics, Foreign Affairs, Terrorism, Race Relations, Turkey, New Zealand. First posted March 23, 2019, 2 hours 5 minutes and 19 seconds.